First contact. The Zarthi arrive. The vast expanse of space stretched endlessly before the Zarthi exploration vessel, Nebula Seeker. Captain Zirek stood at the command center, his iridescent skin shimmering under the soft glow of the ship's bioluminescent panels. The Zarthi, a species of highly advanced beings from the distant Andromeda galaxy, had long since mastered interstellar travel. Their mission: to catalogue and study primitive worlds, expanding their already vast knowledge of the universe. Captain, called out First Officer Valine, had tentacle-like appendages dancing over the control panel. We're detecting unusual energy signatures from the third planet of this solar system. Zirek's compound eyes flickered with interest. On screen, he commanded. The main view screen lit up, revealing a blue and green marble suspended in the inky blackness of space. Earth, as its inhabitants called it, appeared before the Zarthi crew in all its vibrant glory. Fascinating, Zirek murmured. A Class M planet teeming with life. Begin standard observation protocols. For days, the Nebula Seeker orbited Earth, its advanced cloaking technology rendering it invisible to human detection systems. The Zarthi observed and recorded, their collective scientific minds working to understand this new world. It was on the fourth day of observation that something extraordinary caught their attention. "Captain, you need to see this," Valine called out, her voice tinged with a mix of confusion and excitement. Zirek glided over to her station, peering at the holographic display. The image showed a human dwelling, what the Earthlings called a house, with its surrounding area. But it was the scene unfolding in the backyard that held their rapt attention. A small human offspring was running around, emitting high-pitched vocalizations that the Zarthi translator identified as laughter. Chasing the young human was a quadrupedal creature with fur and a wagging appendage. The Zarthi database quickly identified it as a dog, a species of carnivorous mammal. "Is the young one in danger?" Zirek asked, his tendrils twitching with concern. Valine adjusted the sensors, zooming in on the scene. "Negative, Captain. Their biosignatures indicate enjoyment. They appear to be engaged in some form of mutual activity." The crew watched in fascination as the human child and the dog played together, their movements synchronized in a dance of shared joy. Occasionally, the child would throw an object, and the dog would retrieve it, bringing it back to start the cycle anew. "This defies all logic," Zirek muttered. "By all accounts, that creature should be a potential predator, yet it coexists with the humans in harmony. How is this possible?" As they continued to observe, more inexplicable scenes unfolded before their eyes. Humans riding atop large, powerful equines. Tiny, winged creatures perched on human appendages, accepting food and seemingly communicating through melodious sounds. Even more baffling were the small, furry quadrupeds that humans kept in their dwellings, creatures that seemed to hold a position of reverence despite their diminutive size. "Captain," the ship's xenobiologist, Dr. Xumor, interjected, "I've been analyzing the data, and I believe we're witnessing something unprecedented. These humans have formed symbiotic relationships with a vast array of species on their planet. But it's more than simple symbiosis. There are emotional connections, bonds that transcend basic survival needs." Zirek's mind reeled at the implications. In all their travels, the Zarthi had never encountered a sentient species that formed such complex, emotional relationships with other life forms. Their own philosophy had always been one of careful distance, observe, study, but never interact beyond necessity. Could this be some form of advanced psychological control? Zirek pondered aloud. A way to subjugate other species through emotional manipulation. Dr. Xumor's tendrils waved in a gesture of uncertainty. Possible, but unlikely. The relationships appear to be mutually beneficial. The animals display signs of contentment, even affection. It's as if the humans have found a way to communicate and connect with species far removed from their own evolutionary path. As the Nebula Seeker continued its orbit, the Zarthi witnessed more examples of this extraordinary phenomenon. humans diving into vast oceans to swim alongside enormous aquatic mammals, others scaling treacherous mountain peaks with the aid of sure-footed, furry companions. In urban centers, humans shared their living spaces with a diverse array of creatures, from scaled reptiles to colorful avians. "This changes everything," Zirek declared, his voice filled with a mix of awe and trepidation. "If these humans can form such bonds with the species of their world, imagine the implications for interspecies relations on a galactic scale." Valine turned to her captain, her eyes wide with realization. "You don't mean..." Zirek nodded sullenly. "We need to study this further. The High Council must be informed. These humans, they possess a power we never considered. The power of empathy, of connection. It could reshape our understanding of the universe." As the gravity of their discovery settled over the crew, Zirek made a decision that would alter the course of both Xarthi and human history. "Prepare a detailed report for the High Council," he commanded, "and ready the ship for extended observation. We're not leaving until we understand how these humans have achieved what our civilization has long thought impossible." The Nebula Seeker's engines hummed softly as it adjusted its orbit, settling in for a prolonged stay. On the blue planet below, oblivious to the alien eyes watching them, humans continued their daily lives, their extraordinary bonds with Earth's creatures a testament to a power that would soon challenge the very foundations of galactic society. Little did the Xarthi know that their first contact with humanity was just the beginning of a journey that would redefine their understanding of life, intelligence, and the very nature of civilization itself. The Human Zoo Experiment. The Xarthi High Council chamber buzzed with an energy rarely seen in the normally stoic alien race. Captain Zirek stood before the assembled leaders, his report on the humans of Earth projected in vivid holographic detail around the circular room. "Esteemed Council," Zirek began, his voice steady despite his inner turmoil, "what we have discovered on Earth challenges everything we thought we knew about interspecies relationships. The humans have achieved a level of harmony with their world's creatures that defies our understanding." High Counselor Zavra, her aged form draped in shimmering robes of authority, leaned forward. "Your report is troubling, Captain. These humans, primitive as they are, possess an ability that could pose a significant threat to our galactic order." "Or," interjected Counselor Niram, his youth evident in the brightness of his bioluminescent patterns, "it could be the key to revolutionizing our approach to other species. Imagine the possibilities if we could harness this power." The chamber erupted in a cacophony of debate, tentacles waving and skin colors shifting in agitation. Zirek waited patiently until High Counselor Zavra raised a hand for silence. "We must know more," she declared. "Captain Zirek, you are hereby authorized to conduct a full-scale study of these humans and their animal companions. Bring specimens aboard your ship. We need to understand this phenomenon in a controlled environment." Zirek bowed low, his mind already racing with the implications of this new mission. "As you command, High Counselor, we will not fail you." Weeks later, the Nebula Seeker hovered silently over a small town in the American Midwest. Under the cover of night, precision tractor beams activated, carefully selecting and extracting subjects for study. Sarah Miller, a 28-year-old veterinarian, was the first to be taken. As she slumbered peacefully in her bed, a soft blue light enveloped her, and she vanished without a trace. Her golden retriever, Max, who had been sleeping at the foot of her bed, was taken as well. Across town, the Anderson family, John, Maria, and their 10-year-old daughter Emily, were abducted along with their menagerie of pets: 2 cats, a parrot, and a docile ball python. From a nearby farm, the Xarthi selected Hank Thompson, a grizzled old rancher, along with a sampling of his livestock, a cow, 2 horses, and a small flock of chickens. As the chosen humans and animals materialized in the specialized holding areas of the Nebula Seeker, alarms blared through the ship. "Containment breach in Sector 7. Violene's voice rang out over the ship's communication system. "The Earth creatures are not responding as expected to our stasis fields." Zirek rushed to the observation deck, his eyes widening at the scene before him. The humans, groggily awakening from their artificial slumber, were not reacting with the fear and panic the Zarthi had anticipated. Instead, their first instinct seemed to be to seek out and comfort their animal companions. Sarah, still in her pajamas, had already located Max and was hugging the dog tightly, whispering soothing words. The Anderson family huddled together, their cats nestled in their arms, while Emily clutched her parrot's cage protectively. Even old Hank had managed to position himself between the Zarthi observers and his agitated livestock, his weathered hands gentle on the neck of a nervous horse. Fascinating, Dr. Xumor murmured, furiously taking notes. Their bond seems to supersede even their own self-preservation instincts. They prioritize the well-being of their animal companions over their own safety. As the days passed, the Zarthi observation team watched in amazement as the humans adapted to their captivity in unexpected ways. Rather than succumbing to despair or turning on each other, they formed a tight-knit community, with their animals at the center of their makeshift society. Sarah quickly established herself as a leader, her veterinary skills proving invaluable in keeping both humans and animals healthy. The Andersons turned their enclosure into a makeshift classroom, with Emily teaching the Zarthi scientists about the joy of pet ownership through her interactions with the family's parrot and python. Old Hank, initially the most taciturn of the group, became an unexpected bridge between humans and aliens. His quiet way with animals fascinated the Zarthi, who had never seen such effortless communication between species. "Watch," Hank said one day, gesturing to a young Zarthi scientist. "You're all tied up in knots trying to figure out how we do it. But it's simple. You just gotta listen." With slow, deliberate movements, Hank approached one of his horses. He didn't speak, didn't make any obvious gestures. He simply stood there, his energy calm and open. To the Zarthi's amazement, the horse walked up to Hank, nuzzling his shoulder gently. "See," Hank said, a small smile crinkling his weathered face. "You don't always need words. Sometimes you just need to be." This simple demonstration sent shockwaves through the Zarthi scientific community. They had been approaching the study from a purely analytical standpoint, trying to quantify and categorize every interaction. Hank's approach suggested something far more intuitive, more emotional. As the experiment progressed, the lines between observers and subjects began to blur. Young Zarthi scientists found themselves drawn to the enclosures, fascinated by the easy affection between humans and animals. Some even began to form tentative bonds with the earth creatures, much to the alarm of their superiors. Zirek watched these developments with a mixture of awe and concern. The humans were not just surviving in captivity, they were thriving, and in the process, they were changing the Zarthi in ways no one had anticipated. One evening, as Zirek conducted his nightly observation, he noticed Emily Anderson sitting quietly in a corner of the enclosure, tears streaming down her face. Her parrot, usually chatty and energetic, sat silently on her shoulder as if understanding her distress. Without thinking, Zirek deactivated the force field and entered the enclosure. Emily looked up, surprise replacing sorrow for a moment. "Are you unwell?" Zirek asked, his translator conveying his concern. Emily wiped her eyes. I miss home. I miss my friends. I miss the sky." Zirek felt an unfamiliar sensation in his chest, a tightening that he would later understand to be empathy. In that moment, he saw not a test subject, but a child, a sentient being with feelings and needs not so different from his own. "Tell me about your home," he said softly, settling down beside her. As Emily began to speak, her parrot nuzzling her cheek comfortingly, Zirek realized that the true experiment was not just about understanding human-animal bonds. It was about rediscovering a part of themselves that the Zarthi had long forgotten, the capacity for compassion, for connection beyond mere biological imperatives. The human zoo experiment was changing more than just the subjects. It was changing the Zarthi themselves, setting in motion a transformation that would have consequences far beyond the confines of the nebula seeker. As Emily's words painted pictures of Earth's beauty, Zirek made a decision that would alter the course of both human and Zarthi history. The experiment had to end, but the learning was just beginning. The Great Escape. The Nebula Seeker hummed with an energy that was part tension, part anticipation. Weeks had passed since the humans and their animal companions were brought aboard, and the impact of their presence was rippling through the Zarthi crew in unexpected ways. Sarah Miller paced the length of the enclosure, her mind racing. She had been observing their captors as closely as they had been studying the humans, and she had noticed changes. The Zarthi were becoming more expressive, more emotional. It was time to act. "We need to get out of here," she whispered to the group gathered around her. "Not just for us, but for them too. They need to understand that this isn't the way to learn about connection." John Anderson, cradling one of his cats, nodded gravely. "But how? We're in space," crying out loud. "It's not like we can just walk out the front door." "No," Sarah agreed, a glint in her eye, "but we have something they don't expect. We have our bonds, and not just with our own animals." As if on cue, a young Zarthi scientist named Ixara approached a force field. She had been spending more and more time observing Emily and her parrot, fascinated by their interactions. Emily had even been teaching Ixara simple games, building a tentative friendship across species lines. "Emily," Ixara called softly, "would you like to show me that patty cake game again?" Sarah exchanged a meaningful look with the others. This was their chance. As Emily engaged Ixara in the game, Sarah quietly instructed Max, her golden retriever. The dog, sensing the importance of the moment, padded over to the force field and let out a pitiful whine. Ixara, distracted by the sound, turned to look at Max. "Is he unwell?" she asked, concern evident in her voice. "He might be," Sarah said, her voice carefully neutral. "Could you check on him? You've been learning about Earth animals, haven't you?" Flattered by the acknowledgement of her studies, Ixara deactivated a portion of the force field to step inside. It was the moment they had been waiting for. With a speed that surprised even the humans, Hank Thompson moved. Despite his age, years of ranch work had kept him strong. He grabbed Ixara, quickly but gently, while John Anderson snatched her access card. "I'm sorry," Sarah said to the startled Zarthi, "but we can't stay here. This isn't right for any of us." Before Ixara could raise an alarm, Emily's parrot flew at her face, wings flapping wildly, creating a distraction. In the confusion, the humans slipped out of the enclosure, their animals following with an almost uncanny coordination. Alarms blared as the group raced through the alien corridors. John, using Ixara's access card, opened door after door while Sarah led the way, Max running ahead as if scouting the path. "The escape pods," Sarah panted. "We need to find the escape pods." As they rounded a corner, they came face to face with a group of Zarthi security personnel. For a moment, both sides froze, the aliens clearly unprepared for the sight of humans and Earth animals running free on their ship. It was Hank who broke the standoff. With a sharp whistle, he called to the horses they had brought along. The powerful animals, sensing the urgency, charged forward, creating a path through the stunned Zarthi. "Sorry about this," Hank called as they ran past. "Nothing personal." The group finally reached a large bay filled with sleek, oval-shaped pods. As John worked to decipher the alien controls, Sarah turned to address their pursuers who had caught up. "Listen to me," she called out, her voice carrying a strength that made even the Zarthi pause. "We know you're trying to understand us, to understand our connections with animals. But this isn't the way. You can't cage love, you can't study compassion in a lab. It has to be experienced, freely given and received." Zirek pushed his way to the front of the Zarthi group, his eyes meeting Sarah's. For a moment, there was understanding between them, a bridge across the gulf of their differences. "You're right," Zirek said softly. I was wrong. But please, don't leave like this. It's dangerous. Let us help you return safely." Sarah smiled, a mix of sadness and determination. We have to. Your people need to understand. Sometimes, the greatest lessons come from letting go. With a hiss, the escape pod's door opened. As the humans and animals piled in, Emily turned back to look at Ixara, who had joined the group of Zarthi. "Remember the games we played?" Emily called out. "That's where it starts. With play, with joy, with open hearts." The pod door sealed shut, and with a whoosh, it launched into space. The Zarthi watched in stunned silence as the tiny craft disappeared into the star-studded blackness. On board the cramped escape pod, humans and animals huddled together. They had no idea where they were going or what dangers lay ahead. But as Sarah looked around at her companions, at Max leaning against her leg, at Emily cuddling her parrot, at Hank whispering soothingly to the nervous horses, she knew they had made the right choice. "We did it," John said, a note of awe in his voice. "We actually escaped from an alien spaceship." Sarah nodded, her hand absently stroking Max's fur. "We did more than that. We taught them something, and now we'll show them even more." As the escape pod hurtled through space, its occupants settled in for a journey into the unknown. They were no longer just captives or test subjects. They had become ambassadors for humanity, for Earth, for the extraordinary bonds that could form between species. Little did they know that their escape was just the beginning of an adventure that would reshape the understanding of life and connection across the galaxy. Back on the Nebula Seeker, Xerec stood at the observation window, watching the point where the escape pod had vanished from view. He felt a strange mix of emotions: concern for the humans' safety, regret for his role in their captivity, and an odd sense of hope. "Captain," Varlene approached hesitantly. "What are your orders? Should we pursue?" Xerec was quiet for a long moment before responding. "No," he said finally. "We've done enough. It's time we returned home and reported what we've learned, and what we still have to learn." As the Nebula Seeker changed course, heading back to Zarthi space, Xerec couldn't shake the feeling that this was not the end of their encounter with humanity. Somehow, he knew, their paths would cross again, and when they did, he hoped it would be as friends, not as captors and captives. The Great Escape had ended, but the greater journey, for both humans and Zarthi, was just beginning. Stranded on an alien world, the escape pod hurtled through the vast emptiness of space, its occupants a peculiar mix of humans and Earth animals. Sarah Miller, her hands steady on the alien controls, peered out at the unfamiliar star systems streaking by. "Any idea where we're going?" John Anderson asked, his voice tight with worry. Sarah shook her head. "Not a clue. This pod wasn't designed for long-distance travel. We're running on emergency power, and life support won't last forever." As if to emphasize her point, the pod gave a sudden lurch, alarms blaring. The animals, already unsettled by the strange environment, began to vocalize their distress. "Hang on, everyone," Sarah called out as she wrestled with the controls. "We're going down." Through the viewscreen, they could see a planet rapidly approaching. A swirling mass of purples and greens unlike anything they'd seen before. The pod entered the atmosphere with a bone-jarring rattle, streaking across the alien sky like a meteor. With a thunderous crash, they hit the ground, skidding across a field of what looked like bioluminescent moss. When the pod finally came to a stop, an eerie silence fell. Is everyone okay?" Emily's small voice broke the quiet. Miraculously, they had all survived the crash. As the group cautiously exited the damaged pod, they found themselves in a world that defied imagination. The sky was a deep indigo, twin moons casting an ethereal glow over the landscape. The ground beneath their feet pulsed with soft light, responding to their movements. In the distance, towering structures that looked like a cross between trees and crystals reached towards the heavens. "Where are we?" Hank breathed, his weathered hand resting on one of the horses' necks. "I don't know," Sarah replied, her eyes wide as she took in their surroundings. "But we're a long way from home." As the reality of their situation sank in, the group began to take stock. The escape pod was beyond repair, its systems fried from the crash. They had limited supplies, no way to contact Earth or the Zarthi, and were stranded on an alien world with no idea if the environment was even safe for them long term. First things first, Sarah said, taking charge. We need to find water and shelter. Then we can figure out our next move. As they ventured away from the crash site, the humans quickly realized that their animal companions were proving invaluable. Max, Sarah's golden retriever, seemed to have an uncanny ability to sense safe paths through the alien terrain. The horses, with their keen senses, were quick to alert the group to potential dangers. Emily's parrot, perched on her shoulder, began mimicking strange, melodic sounds they heard in the distance. "Do you think there are animals here?" Emily asked, her fear giving way to curiosity. As if in answer, a creature emerged from the bioluminescent underbrush. It was about the size of a large dog, with 6 legs and a body that seemed to shift colors like a chameleon. Its large, compound eyes regarded the Earth visitors with what seemed like intelligence. The humans froze, unsure how to react, but Max, ever the friendly dog, wagged his tail and took a step forward. To everyone's amazement, the alien creature responded by emitting a soft, purring sound and mirroring Max's body language. "Well, Hank chuckled. "Looks like making friends is a universal language." Over the next few days, the humans and their animal companions worked to establish a base camp near a stream of clear, purple-tinted water that their devices deemed safe to drink. They fashioned shelter from the pod's emergency supplies and the strange, pliant vegetation of the alien world. Each day brought new discoveries and challenges. The bioluminescent moss, they found, was edible and nutritious. The crystal trees exuded a sap that, when applied to wounds, had remarkable healing properties. And the 6-legged creature, which Emily dubbed Shimmer, became a regular visitor to their camp, often bringing fruits or small game as if offering gifts. But it wasn't all smooth sailing. Strange atmospheric disturbances would occasionally sweep through, forcing them to take shelter. Unfamiliar predators lurked in the shadows of the crystal trees, kept at bay only by the vigilance of Max and the horses. Through it all, the bond between the humans and their animal companions deepened. In this alien environment, they relied on each other more than ever. The animals seemed to adapt quickly to the new world, their instincts often guiding the humans to safety or resources. One evening, as they sat around a fire made from glowing fungal wood, Sarah voiced what they had all been thinking. "You know, in a way, we're doing exactly what the Zarthi wanted to study. We're forming bonds, adapting, surviving, just not in the way they expected." John nodded, absently petting one of the cats curled in his lap. "It's ironic, isn't it? They wanted to understand our connection with animals, and here we are, deepening that connection on a world neither we nor our pets were born to." As the days turned to weeks, the group began to explore further from their base camp. They mapped the area, catalogued the alien flora and fauna, and even started to decipher some of the patterns in the environment. Emily, with her young, adaptable mind, was particularly adept at understanding the alien world. "It's like the whole planet is alive," she explained one day, her hands gesturing excitedly. "Everything's connected, communicating in ways we can't see, but I think our animals can sense it." Her theory seemed to hold true. The Earth animals, particularly Max and the parrot, began to exhibit behaviors that suggested they were tapping into some kind of planetary network. They would often lead the humans to new discoveries or warn them of approaching dangers before any visible signs appeared. As they adapted to their new home, the humans couldn't help but reflect on the lessons they were learning, lessons about resilience, about the deep connections between all living things, and about the incredible adaptability of life. "You know," Hank said one evening, looking up at the unfamiliar stars, "I reckon those Zarthi could learn a thing or two if they could see us now. This right here, this is what it's all about. Not studying life in a cage, but living it, adapting to it, becoming part of it." Sarah smiled, her hand resting on Max's head. "You're right, Hank. And somehow, I have a feeling they'll get the chance to learn that lesson. Little did they know, light years away, the Zarthi were indeed learning. The escape of the humans had sparked a revolution in Zarthi society, challenging long-held beliefs about interspecies relationships and the nature of intelligence itself. As the twin moons rose over their alien home, the stranded Earth team settled in for another night, surrounded by the gentle glow of their bioluminescent world. They were lost, yes, but they were also found, pioneers on a new frontier, carrying with them the best of what humanity had to offer. Their story was far from over. In fact, it was just beginning. The battle of two worlds. Months had passed on the alien world, which the humans had come to call Lumina. The Earth team had not only survived but thrived, forming a deep connection with their new home and its bizarre yet beautiful ecosystem. However, their peaceful existence was about to be shattered. One day, as Emily was exploring with her parrot and Shimmer, she noticed strange lights in the sky. "They're coming," she said, her voice a mix of excitement and apprehension. Sarah and the others gathered to watch as a massive ship, unmistakably Zarthi in design, descended through Lumina's atmosphere. But it wasn't alone. A second ship, sleeker and more organic in appearance, also approached. "Friends of yours?" Hank asked dryly, nodding towards the unfamiliar craft. Before anyone could respond, both ships landed in a clearing not far from the human settlement. From the Zarthi vessel emerged a familiar figure, Captain Zirek, accompanied by a contingent of his crew. From the other ship came beings the humans had never seen before, tall, ethereal creatures with translucent skin that pulsed with inner light. "Luminans," Emily breathed, somehow knowing the name of these beings. "They're part of the planet." Zirek approached the human group, his posture tense, but his eyes filled with what looked like relief. "We've been searching for you," he said. I needed to make things right." But before he could continue, the leader of the Luminans stepped forward. Its voice seemed to bypass their ears, resonating directly in their minds. "You do not belong here," it communicated. "Your presence disrupts the balance of our world." Suddenly, the peaceful alien paradise became a battleground of ideologies. The Zarthi, driven by their newfound appreciation for interspecies bonds, argued for the humans' right to stay. The Luminans, protective of their delicately balanced ecosystem, insisted on their removal. As tensions escalated, it was the Earth animals that changed the course of events. Max, sensing the rising conflict, positioned himself between the arguing groups. He let out a bark that seemed to ripple through the bioluminescent landscape, causing waves of light to spread across the ground. Emily's parrot, picking up on the energy, began to sing a haunting melody that mimicked the sounds of Lumina. The horses nickered softly, their sounds blending with the alien world's ambient noise. To everyone's astonishment, Lumina itself seemed to respond. The crystal trees resonated, the bioluminescent moss pulsed, and even the Luminans paused, that inner light synchronizing with the rhythms produced by the Earth animals. Sarah stepped forward, her voice calm but firm. "This is what we've been trying to show you, all of you. Life finds a way to connect, to harmonize. We didn't come here by choice, but we've become part of this world, and it's become part of us." The Lumina leader, its light pulsing thoughtfully, communicated again. "We see now. You have not disrupted the balance. You have become part of it." Zirek, his eyes wide with wonder, turned to Sarah. "This is what we failed to understand in our studies. This connection, this harmony, it can't be forced or contained. It must be experienced." As the tension dissipated, replaced by a sense of mutual understanding, a new chapter began. The Zarthi, the Luminans, and the Earth team began to share knowledge and experiences. The battle of two worlds had been averted, replaced by a collaboration that would change the course of galactic history. A new understanding. In the years that followed, Lumina became a symbol of interspecies cooperation and understanding. The humans, with their unique ability to form bonds with diverse life forms, became intermediaries between the Zarthi and the Luminans. Earth animals, particularly dogs and parrots, were found to have an extraordinary ability to sense and interact with Lumina's living ecosystem. This discovery led to new fields of study in xenobiology and interspecies communication. Zirek, profoundly changed by his experiences, became an advocate for a new approach to galactic exploration, one based on respect, empathy, and mutual understanding rather than dominance and control. The Anderson family, along with Sarah and Hank, were given the choice to return to Earth, but they chose to stay on Lumina, serving as ambassadors between their home planet and their new alien allies. Emily, now a young woman, became a leading expert in interplanetary ecology, her unique perspective bridging the gap between Earth science and alien biology. Back on the Zarthi homeworld, the story of the human zoo experiment and its unexpected outcomes sparked a cultural revolution. The Zarthi began to reevaluate their relationships with other species, leading to more ethical and compassionate practices in their scientific endeavors. As news of the events on Lumina spread across the galaxy, other alien races began to take notice. The planet became a hub of interstellar diplomacy, a living example of how diverse species could coexist and thrive together. One day, as the twin moons of Lumina rose over the crystal trees, Sarah stood with Max by her side, watching a group of young Zarthi, Luminans, and humans playing together in a field of glowing moss. Shinma and several of its offspring frolicked among them, their colors shifting in harmony with the planet's pulsing light. Zirek approached, his once rigid posture now relaxed and open. "I never imagined this outcome when we first brought you aboard the Nebula Seeker," he said, his voice filled with wonder. Sarah smiled, reaching down to scratch Max behind the ears. "That's the beauty of it, Zirek. The greatest discoveries, the most profound connections, they can't be forced or controlled. They have to be nurtured, allowed to grow naturally." As they watched the interspecies gathering, a melodic trill filled the air. Emily's parrot, now old but still vibrant, sat perched on a crystal tree branch, singing a song that blended Earth melodies with the harmonic resonances of Lumina. "You know," Sarah mused, "when we first crashed here, I thought we were lost. But now I realize we were exactly where we needed to be. Sometimes you have to get lost to find something truly extraordinary." Zirek nodded, his bioluminescent patterns glowing with contentment. "And in finding your way, you helped an entire galaxy find a new path." As night fell on Lumina, the bioluminescent world glowed with life and possibility. The story of the humans and their animal companions had become legend, a testament to the power of empathy, adaptability, and the unbreakable bonds that can form between species. In the end, it wasn't about humans, or Zarthi, or Luminans. It was about life itself, diverse, resilient, and forever seeking connection. And as the galaxy continued to expand and evolve, the lessons learned on this small, glowing world would light the way towards a more harmonious future for all species. The end of one journey had become the beginning of a greater adventure, one that would span stars, transcend boundaries, and remind every being in the cosmos that at the heart of existence lies the simple, profound ability to connect.